Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Medium's Porch. I am your host, Kathleen Bolt, and we are here yet again to bring you the power, privilege, and process of communicating with the spirit world. And today, I wanted to bring you a new treat. A couple weeks ago, we spoke to someone that does physical mediumship. And today, I wanted to bring someone that is going to talk to you a little more about his role in working with spirit in creating art. So basically spirit art. Now, before I introduce you, I wanted to talk just for a moment about spirit art. That is something that I don't do at this time, although I've created some pieces with spirit inspiration. However, what I've been paying attention to over the years has shown me that spirit art is an extremely effective way to communicate with spirit, to manifest it into the physical world so that we can have healing, so that we can have relief from bereavement, and we can also feel a sense of inspiration, interconnection, and an ability to connect with that part of ourself as well as that of others in the spirit world. So what is spirit art? Just like mediumship, there are many branches. There are many ways it can manifest. So I want you to be aware as we're talking here today that spirit art can be something that you have encountered. Say if you've been at Lilydale and you've seen some of the precipitated paintings that are around town, that is a style of spirit art where spirit is creating these paintings in the presence of a medium, using the power of the group and the medium present to create a beautiful work of art. And people that did that, we've got the Bang sisters, we've got the Campbell brothers, among others. And if you're in Lilydale this summer and you're interested in spirit art, I highly recommend that you go to the museum and to the hotel and check them out. The spirit paintings that are precipitated paintings are amazing. You can't see the brush strokes, fascinating subject area. And are in Lilydale, you can also talk to Ron Nagy. He is our museum curator, and he has published this book. It's a small little book that talks a lot and gives you a ton of information about precipitated art. So that's something you can look into if that is your following or your interest. As I said, there's many different ways that it can be expressed. So spirit art can be expressed through the mode of precipitation. It can be represented through bringing through inspiration from spirit and creating a beautiful work of art that has an energy in it, a power in it that the viewer actually sees. It can also be done through what we consider automatic art, where spirit just takes our hand and starts working with it. You can also see spirit influencing us through the different modes and media that the artists are using, the materials. The functionality of the work and how it integrates with the person that will ultimately be viewing it. There's also different techniques. You'll see a variety of techniques across the spirit artist's palette, between artists specifically, and maybe even in individual artists as they evolve and different teams come in. And we'll be talking a little bit about that today. I wanted to mention one more book before I get off of this generalized topic and introduce you to our guest. I wanted to mention this book. This is a publication that came along with an exhibit that was done a couple of years ago at the Minneapolis Museum of Art. Institute of Art is what it's called. And it is called Supernatural America. And I love the artwork on it. You can see that you can see it in my camera. There we go. And the pressing of the supernatural. Now, unfortunately, they use the word supernatural throughout, whereas spiritualists like ourselves, we would prefer to use the word spirit art or spiritual art. But there's a lot of material in here for those of you that are interested in art and want to see the broad scope of how the so-called paranormal and spirit world have influenced artists throughout America. So our guest today, he is actually from North America. He is actually coming to us from Canada. And our artist today is Mark Soparlo. And I paused for a moment here because I'm looking here for the location. It's Burnaby, is it not, Mark? Hello, Mark. Welcome.
Hello, Kathleen.
Sorry about
Burnaby,
that.
Canada. Otherwise, just say Vancouver.
Say Vancouver. All right. Because I was like, wait, I think it's Burgundy. Say it for me. Burnaby.
Yeah, Burnaby, BC. Yes.
Yes,
so.
thank you. It's close to Vancouver, is it? British
Yes,
Columbia?
it's very close to Vancouver. We got a beautiful lake right down here, so it's a great setting. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. So thank you for coming today. Thank you for being willing to talk to us. Mark is adept at working with healing. He has studied healing for years. He has a master teacher. Do you want to tell us the name of your master teacher, please, Mark?
yeah, I've been studying with Dr. and Master Zhi Gang Sha, and I went through the Dao Academy, became a certified master teacher, and basically I'm allowed to have the power and authority to offer some very special healing blessings, basically. We usually refer to it more as transformation, to help people to transform their challenges on the health, the physical, mental, emotional, all aspects. So,
And it has informed your art, hasn't it?
yes, and everything has changed because of that. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, when I started, I was just like everybody else here. I was learning, mediumship way back. Janis, my wife, is also a medium, and she also was kind of teaching me through the whole medium process. And then we ended up going to Stansted in England, and there I got to study with some great spirit artists there as well, Alan Stuttle, and kind of honed the skill because I didn't really have much education into it. I just started to do this. And it was a whole process of learning to really let go. That's the whole thing I've learned with art. Normally, artists, you want to be in control, but when it comes to spirit art, you have to learn to just let it go. And that was a process. And as I started to work with that, I started to develop and work with spirit. And what was being created was pretty amazing. You can see a little sample behind me here. So
thank you for mentioning that.
Lots to develop.
Yes. That's wonderful. And now doing this work, you and Janis together, your wife, who I have met, that's how I met you. Janis and you work together at Follow Your Heart Wellness. So tell us a little bit about your company.
Well, Follow Your Heart Wellness came about as, my background is young, strong guy, and all of a sudden, challenges came. So I got very sick for many years. Went and saw everybody I knew to try to transform. And basically, when I met my teacher, Master Qi Gong Sha, he offered a very special blessing at that time. That was in 2008. Everything started to transform, and I was so curious about how this worked because we did so many different other things and not so much results. So through that process, and back in 2016, we started to do the Follow Your Heart Wellness. And then in 2019, kind of went more formal with that. So that's kind of like our little healing arm that we offer to the public. We have a lot of clients that come in. We offer special classes. We got retreats that we do once a month. We got special other classes that we do. And people can come in and experience. And hopefully they get the results that they're looking for. So
nice. Now, do you do virtual healing as well? Do you work virtually with people or just in person?
I've done both. I mean, since the pandemic, I think everyone's gone a little more virtual.
Sure.
There's really no time and space when it comes to healing and that type of aspect. So I've helped people all around the world. The phone rings and people are going through some really serious challenges. So, we've helped with cancers, we've helped with, really severe pains. And we're just very grateful that we, receive the power that we have. We check guidance, we offer blessings. And it's amazing, the stories. We got so many, a little bit behind on my website, a lot of things, but I got to get up. But a lot of people have had great transformation, not just on the physical end, but relationships. We've got a lot of people we help with relationships and, very challenging ones. And it's amazing after a period of time working with them, the whole thing transforms. So that I always find really amazing because you can't take a pill for that.
No, you can't. And it can be a process.
Yes.
It's nice that you offer a variety of healing modalities and methods because Janis, being a spiritual medium, she is able to connect with spirit world in that evidential and messaging way. And then you can be abstract with your artwork even. You can do the healing. So you have a lovely toolbox there that you can help people with. I love that.
Thank you.
So now, question for you. What about the spirit connection in your artwork? So we do see a piece behind you. We're going to see more in a few moments. What is it about the spirit artwork that just throws you into the passion of it all and keeps you diving in and going back for more?
Well, I think for me, it's a, we're always learning and we're always trying to understand. I mean, because you're in the physical reality, you experience life in one direction. When you start to immerse and work with spirit, that dimension opens up. And what it does, it opens up into whole different possibilities. And what I really discovered with it, when we have to let go and just really become a channel for this frequency, this vibration that's coming through us, then a lot of magic can happen. And I say magic because I've been trained as an artist my whole life. I've done many things. But when I started to really connect with spirit, with what you're seeing behind me, there was a quality of light and a vibration that would end up in the paintings that I could never reproduce on my own. And the whole process is guided. There's not one moment that you are not guided. So I didn't know this initially, but this is an oil painting. I would put the painting up, the canvas, and then you're putting the oil on the palette, and you think this is all in your mind, but you realize you're totally guided as to which one, how amounts, all of that. And like this one here was painted with a brush that's probably about 8 inches wide. And if I look really close, there's some really interesting details. And I was always amazed that when the brush would go onto the palette, your mind is seeing one color and another color would actually end up on the canvas.
No kidding.
So it was a whole learning process. And for me, it was just really opening up to that whole other dimension. It was learning about it. And then, of course, as time went on, my channel started to open. So this is where we talked about the third eye, starting to see, getting to hear. There's a direct knowing that starts to happen. So this is really adding another layer to my communications, my abilities. And then this is really how this started to evolve. And it continues to evolve. So there's nothing stagnant about it. And I found, the more that I'm doing my own practices to increase my vibration through meditation, other practices I do, the artwork also changes because you're able to connect to higher and higher frequencies. And then also that comes down. So the artwork also evolves over time. So there's nothing stationary. I think that's the thing I really enjoy most about it. It's always ongoing and it's always dynamic. It's always moving. It's a lot of movement, a lot of flow. You can kind of see this energy in it. And what I'm really fascinated about is when I've had the gallery shows, people have come up to the art and they're looking at it, they don't even know anything about spirit art. And they would just start to look at it and they're mesmerized. And then we'll just ask, what do you see? What do you feel? It's amazing what people would say. There's a much deeper connection. They would start to feel of energies. They would start talking about different things they would see in the paintings. And this is something for me because I don't know what you're going to see. I'm just here as a channel. I just present it. However you experience it is how you're experiencing it. So I'm always learning, and through that connecting with people and seeing how the joy in their face, their connection with the piece, and some people they decide they need to be the sentinel of the piece, and of course then they want to honor and receive it, take it home. Some people I told them, well, just meditate with it, right? Because you can see a lot that's in there. So it's always ongoing, the whole process.
And the frequency actually remains in the painting as well. So yes. you whatever spirit was bringing through and trying to communicate, it can be received according to the level of the viewer, right? And what spirit is able to offer them through that physical representation.
Yeah, and I also discovered people that have more sensitive or have their channels open will start to see images within the painting.
Okay.
So this is where we start to see, maybe spiritual guides or, other enlightened beings in there. There's another process. Initially, when we started to do the painting, my channels, like I said, were not so far open. But as we started to progress, I started to see much more depth in it. And I started to realize that, my head was initially thinking these are just images of, Earth and all this. I realized No, these are higher dimensions. There's a different aspect that they were showing because the color is very different, the frequency is very different, and then the movement. And like I said, the quality of light that is in there. And they paint very, very fast. It's really amazing. You know, just like you were talking about the physical art, they're holding your hand. I felt that, you know, I got the brush and I'm going around and it's like, wait a minute, who's moving my hand because I'm going so fast? And you're
I was
not
going to
even
ask
in
you
your
about that.
head, right?
Yeah.
You're just trying to get out of the way. And of course, when I started that process, you know, sometimes my head would get into it and then I could tell, okay, this area, not so good, right? So I'd have to learn and kind of go back. And the more I released, there was a process that I've learned to develop. And it's just like anything, like when you're learning mediumship, you want to do dance, all of that. There's a whole process of letting go, letting that communication come through. So this I just refer to it as a visual communication, much like as a, like, you know, Janis, my wife, that does the speaking when we're doing a dam in a, like a church situation. So the voice would come out and, you know, the information is there, whereas the art, the information is there, but it's a little bit different.
I'd like to come back to the process because that process engages spirit. So I had a couple questions about that. When you're doing your work, are you kind of led into that already, but are you feeling spirit managing the physical body and the movements? Or is it varied between this and something else? And this something else I'm thinking is, or is it something where you're in trance and you don't even know what's going on? I suppose that's them controlling it as well. Or is it something, I guess the opposite would be if you're painting and you're aware. So like if you're giving mental mediumship, you're aware that the information is coming. You're aware the person's with you. You know, you could describe them or you could just leave the description because something else has become more important. So you're a little more present. So does it vary for you? Talk a little more about your process, if you would.
Well, you know, as an artist, you're an experimenter, right? So I've done all of the above. So when I started, it was more about trying to get out of my mind and into my heart and just allow the process. And then I really started to get more into a deeper layer of trance. And then they would really work much different. And I could actually, at some points, the third eye open, I could actually see the guides. And the beings there that were doing the work, I could feel them, like I said, moving my hands. So that's a totally amazing process. And then there's other points where I've done other art, you know, on location, other things, and I've just been more hypersensitive. So maybe I feel like I'm a little bit more in control, but I can feel the presence. And sometimes I find it really comes down to really what I feel like I want to do. If I want to do trance, they're there. If I want to be a little more in control and I want to have a more be more intuitive that way, feel that type of guidance, I can move into that realm. So it's really, we have a lot of control on how we want to do this process, and I find that they're very accommodating. So it's really what I've discovered myself. It's really what I wanted to do, and because I wanted to try everything, I've tried, you know, all different aspects at different times, and each one's a little bit different. There's a different subtlety with the energy, a different frequency, and then, like I mentioned before, there's a growing. Like, you know, what I've done, you know, several years ago is a lot different than what I'm doing today, because my frequency has changed. So I'm not necessarily connecting with that vibration anymore. The vibration changes and shifts. So I see that in the art itself. And because I can't really go back to this state because I'm already at this vibration, it's always evolving and moving forward. So I never know what I'm going to do. Janis always laughed, you know, she goes, here's the art. He's in a studio with no windows, right? And he's just creating, right? So it's not like I'm sitting down, but what's really interesting is, you know, you start to look at our home and our environment and you can say, this looks like this, or this looks like that. I've had people come up and they say, this looks like my home country in Africa or Asia or wherever. And, you know, sometimes it looks like just down the block from us as well. So it's really what people get captured with, because I think spirit art really connects very deeply to us. And once we kind of go into that, it really allows you to kind of, it takes you to a different place. And that's what I love about it. It's uplifting and it really increases that vibration. So I always say, just put it in your home because it's going to transform the vibration.
So, speaking of your guides and taking to another place, have you noticed in your meeting of these guides, have you developed a relationship with them where you start to realize, oh, they did spend a life in another location, and this is why they're inspiring me to work in a certain way or to create a certain scene? Have you ever encountered that?
Mine's kind of like, I suppose there's many different ways, but I know that I have basically a team that's with me, but I kind of invite the guests.
Okay.
And some of the guests, like when I first started to paint, I was really inspired by the Impressionistics. So rather than inviting Monet and all of that, I started to kind of invite the Impressionistic entities, if you will.
Okay.
And they would come and they would do the artwork that way. And then through that time, there's been an evolution. I've been connecting with different groups, um, different light beings is the way I like to describe it. Although I do know that it's not always an easy thing to describe because there's a whole layering effect. There's a layer that's you, and there's a layer that you have kind of a more of a team that's working with you, and then you're inviting teams in. And sometimes I don't want to go too deep into this because there's a whole interconnection of how the teams work together, and there's a different vibration. But I've learned that through a lot of meditation because I've communicated that way, especially when we're doing the mediumship. And then what they do is they really, whether it's all inspired or whether they actually take physical control of the body, because there's different ways that they want to learn too, right? they're,
Yes, and they
they're
want
learning, they're
to
growing,
as
and we're
well.
learning how to work together. And that's why this is a huge collaboration. And really, as an artist, you just have to just say, okay, guys, let's go in the studio. Let's see what happens today. And I never know what it's going to be. And what I learned is sometimes my head comes out and going, oh, this is just, maybe I don't quite like what I'm doing and I don't really feel that well. And then I show it to somebody and they're just fully in love with it. So sometimes I have to kind of step back and start to go uh, connect with what I've done and start to say, hey, there is a lot there. Because as an artist, we're very much trying to control and we're trying to put out a certain quality in a product. And then when you do spirit art, it's all over the map. Everything I learned went out the window because they start with this color and that color and they're layering totally different. They're bringing colors in different. So the whole process is upside down for me. And but I've learned to embrace the final product, and I've learned to in awe of it is really what happened. And then we started to meditate, and the meditations really started to amaze me because there's a lot of depth. It's just like mediumship. When you're connecting, you're doing a dam for a church, or you're getting information from somebody, loved ones coming through. Well, art is like that. There's somebody there. There's a story being told, and they're leading you on a story, and you can connect to that story. But the thing is, art has so many stories. There's 1,000 stories or more in a piece of art. So you can always get more, and you can always learn more. You can always connect more, and that's why I just love about the art because it's never stagnant. It's never still.
So this idea of always being more, how do you know when it's time to start a painting and how do you know when it's time to stop?
Well, actually, the simple thing is I can feel the energy drop.
Okay.
And when the energy drops, especially when I was doing the paintings like this one, it was amazing. The palette would actually have no paint left on it. Like the last swoop, right? And then I would do my thing and then I would feel the energy drop and I would look at the palette because you're not really consciously looking. There's no paint, there's no energy. And it's just like, okay, I'm done the session. Because with especially with oil paints, you have to kind of do it in a bit of layers and stuff.
And so you do work with oil then. Okay. I
Yeah,
wasn't.
but it's amazing. I've got some images I can show where it's the same paint, but it's done more oil, or it's done more like acrylic, or maybe it's even done more like a watercolor. And
Oh,
that's the amazing thing. I never know how they're going to work, and they actually work it in. So just how the thing comes about. I never know what I'm going to be doing, but you can see the quality in the art. And of course, as an artist, the screen is one area, and of course, we're always looking at color, so I never know how well they're going to transcribe on a screen or through photos. But I know when you come in person, it's just a whole different experience. So
Now, you are already pretty much answering my question, I believe, with what I'm going to ask next, because you are talking about the variability and the variety and the customization that happens with each spirit support that you do for every painting. I do want to ask the question, though, because I had seen other artists that spirit had them working a very specific way each time. And like maybe starting on the bottom of the page and moving across like we would understand a dot printer. So when you're starting, do they again vary that, or do they have a systemized way of working with you once they get started?
What's really interesting, when I do the dance for the churches, we're drawing more, loved ones that come through. My channels initially weren't open, so Janis always would have to do the message, and I would draw. But as my channels opened up, I would get this message: draw the eyes, right? Because as they came in, they wanted to see. And then some
like
people were very specific.
Sure.
They wanted to look a certain way. Everybody wanted, I always say they all want to look in their 30s, right? They don't want so many wrinkles or this, that. And of course, I'm thinking, well, their loved ones aren't going to recognize them because they don't know who you are when you're young, right? They know who you are when you're older. But as I go through it, sometimes there's a bit of a process with that. Sometimes they do come in and it's certain features of a face that will come in, and there's a whole thing. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's not even a face. Sometimes I'm drawing the body. Sometimes I'm drawing the shape, a figure. And then sometimes there's a whole, there's a lot of other information that comes in. Sometimes they start to draw family groups that you can see how many siblings they had and where they worked and all that. Although it's not maybe like a photograph type thing, but I can see that you can see figures within the drawing itself, whether it's in their hair or clothing and things. And you can just start to look and you can say, oh, look at that's interesting. There's 4 people here. So I would just give out a message. There's 4 people here, and they would confirm, yes, I had 4 brothers or whatever. And then you could see a pathway, a road. Sometimes you could see their occupation. The other thing that was really interesting was you could see their challenges in life. If somebody had eye issues, you can't draw their eye perfect because they're showing you that their eye had a problem. So sometimes as an artist, you're trying, oh, why can't I draw the eye? Then you realize they had eye issues. And that's why the eye isn't coming in so nice and it's not so perfect. So you have to just let go and really just let spirit produce how they want to come through. And then they're drawing themselves because that's their information. And every time I give it to somebody, I have no idea what I'm talking about. And then, people come back and it's, oh, yes, it's all, it's all the messages there. The thing I always find interesting, sometimes people can't remember their loved ones or what happened. And then we would do another dem, at a church 3-4 months later. They walked in, they're talking about this drawing. They're just raving about it. I can't remember anything, but they just are going into every detail because they've had time to think about it, time to connect. But as a channel, it comes, it goes, and we're finished. So I can't remember the moment after that moment because that's how the frequency comes in. That's how the energy is. It's not me to hold on to that. It's really a message for you. So I always tell people, I'm not going to remember it anyway, so don't be concerned about any private information because that's how spirit works. They're here to support you. They give you that clue, that message. Sometimes they tell you why they're here. There's so many things I've been learning with that process. So it's just so wonderful.
I love that you mentioned that spirit wanted you to draw the eyes first, because I know from an experiment that I did that I did several drawings and I kept saying to myself that it doesn't matter how proportionally correct I was in my sketch. If I didn't have that person's eyes, I wasn't capturing the presence of that person. And until I finally did that thing you're talking about, that surrender to say, all right, spirit, I give up trying to draw. I am just going to ask you to be my partner in this drawing of this person. I mean, the drawing, the eyes were there, the spark of life. I was blown away. And again, it's because I gave way to spirit. I allowed spirit to make it happen, or allow me to be a participant in the happening. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention to you, and you may have come across this too, the importance of the eyes. In Eastern religions, when they build structure their statuary and their teachers in their, seated form and positions, if they put eyes, if they paint eyes on, it's the last thing they do. And they have a special artist that comes in to do that. They use a mirror in front of them and they paint backwards over their shoulders, because you're not to look directly in the eye of the spirit, because you're actually bringing the spirit into the physical form as you're doing it. So you have to do this backward facing painting work. And so the eyes have a lot to say in any work that we're doing. So let's take a second to show the listeners here some of your work. I mean, obviously they have the one behind you, but you're right now talking about doing evidential work and bringing images through of spirit loved ones. So you have a piece that you were willing to show us. Can we take a look at that now?
Yeah, so let me share my screen here now. So, okay, here we go. So
Yes.
this one was for a client, and these are fairly fast sketches. I think for this one I had a little more time, and this was a European lady that came in. Now this was several years ago, so I can't recall everything. But you can see definitely there was a family resemblance. When you kind of get into the basics of the mediumship there, and then of course there's also the expression that comes in and how they look. What was interesting, there was a similarity with the person that I was drawing for, and because this was a relative, you could see the European. This was actually one picture that was done when I was in Stansted, so I was learning. I was in Europe. In England doing this, so I was connecting to a lot of Europeans at the time, and you can see that in this person. But the interesting thing with this one is the expression on the face, and then now it may be a bit challenging to look, but because this is a little more traditional, but sometimes you can start to look. There is detail there. There's earrings and there's different shapes. So these are clues. They may not have. These are the things that the evidence that you would give, and
Right.
somebody would actually have this in their home. They would recognize this. So that's the thing I always find fascinating. There's nothing that goes to a generalization. Everything is part of the message. So even something as simple as an earring or some other aspect that they're wearing, the client can identify with that and say, yes, this is something that we received. And that's kind of like their memory of this individual. And same with the clothes. And if you kind of look into there, it might be a little bit sketchy, but there's different aspects, there's different layers within that. I kind of have to kind of reconnect with that, but it's kind of also showing a bit of a landscaping. So there was a bit of what they're telling me here right now again is that this person was living kind of close to the water, which you can kind of see there is almost something like a water shadow on the neck here, and that's also symbolizing where they lived and how they lived. I can't remember all the details, but that's the image or the message I'm getting right now as I'm reconnecting with this. So I'm always fascinated through that process.
I notice a lot of the variance in your contrasting, which would give a lot of evidence to the person looking at it. Because the hair, usually hair and eyebrows are similar. But in this case, you've got denser eyebrows and lighter hair. So that could mean anything from gray hair to blonder hair, or someone who went out of their way to dye their eyebrows or put pencil in. So there's a lot of little details that the person looking at it would be able to check out. I love the little widow's peak that you have drawn in there. There's a little bit of that in there, the thin upper lip with the widow's peak. I mean, that would be a detail that would really specify the evidence of this being a particular person, not just any person that you've drawn an upper and lower lip for. So nicely done. Cool.
Yeah, great.
So now this isn't something you do often. You do balance things out with your other healing, but why don't we move on to one of your other paintings where you put your spirit passions into it. You've got Serene Silence perhaps next. I'm not sure what you've got in the order there.
Just get Serene Silence here.
While you're getting it, how do you name these? Does spirit impress you with the naming, or is that something you come up with from your impression?
Well, it's totally spirit. So I think you can see it here now. So Serene Silence, like I said, we would meditate on it and the name would come. And the
Okay.
name was really interesting because it was something that, this isn't something that I would even come up with, serene silence. And then what for this particular one, there's a lot of depth in it, and it's very subtle. Like some people see when they're looking into the sky, you can actually see mountain range, but some people may not see a mountain range. So it's very layered. The other thing that's interesting about this particular painting is that there's a part that's in focus and a part that is not. So if you look kind of in the closer right-hand side, you'll see it's more etheric. It's kind of, it's not quite in focus. And then as you kind of go further back, there's a bit more depth of field. And if you kind of zoom in, you will actually see a bit of an auric field around which would look like more like a wheat field or some type of grass meadow here that is here as well. And then the other thing that I've shown this when I've shown this to other people is in the foreground there's a kind of a darker patch, and there's a very lighter shade in there, and you can see different things within it. So people see different things. So I don't want to say what I see. I'd rather just let people go and see what they see, because there's a lot of things in there. Like some people see animals, some people see faces, some people see other aspects in there. Things that they can relate to, and then sometimes they see more universal things, like even people have mentioned like stars or planets or other things. So there's a lot of things that can be in there, and these are really just symbolic of the different nature.
And I
And
want to
if
I
you
want
kind
to add
of
something in
meditate,
there.
you will go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, I just want to add something in there, because for those people that are looking at this and able to see things in it, that's fabulous. But for the people that aren't seeing things in it, take it in as you take it in. You're not wrong if you don't see something in it. Even if you're a sensitive person, you don't have to see something in a spirit art that is something you can label. You can just have the experience of the art. And I want to make sure we're including those people as well in the discussion, because some people may look at this and see, I see a yellow field with a hill, a blue sky, maybe a little bit of blue down there to show the dampness, and green. And maybe that's all they get, but maybe it invokes this feeling of joy, right? So we have to remember that just because it's spirit art doesn't mean it has to show a physical being or a physical experience or something you've seen before. You can just go into the esoteric aspect of it.
Beautiful. Yeah, and that's what I said when I've had my gallery presentations. 90% of the people showing up have no spirit background. So when they're looking at things, they're just seeing beautiful images. They don't understand. But when I listen to them, there's an emotional response. And that's what I really look for, because some people, when they come in, they really are drawn to something, and then I start to ask them what it is about it. You can always feel the emotional response that they're drawn to something, and it's like the painting is talking to them in a way that they don't fully understand. They just enjoying the image. They're getting it. And I don't, sometimes I will never mention that it's really spirit art. I just want them to really just enjoy a different layer of art, a different type of frequency. So
now, earlier you were talking about how your spirit teams can change. So we have this illustration, this painting, and you have another one you want to show us. And then maybe can you talk about how that unfolded, that differentiation between the two paintings and the team?
So let me go to this one here. Okay, and I'm just going to share the screen for this one. Okay, so this one here is very different than the first. So these are done with the same paints, and so they're like a water soluble oil paint is what I worked in, because my studio had no windows. I couldn't handle the real oil paint. So this one was actually more of an Asian influence. So I really felt that tradition come in. I'm not exactly sure whether, more of a Japanese or Chinese type background, but definitely a more Asian influence. You can see it in the quality of the brushstrokes, in the nature of it. It has a very different quality to it. There's a very nature to it. And again, these are done with a very big brush as well. And this one, there was a lot of watercolor that happened. So the pond or the sky, however people are interpreting that, almost became like a wash that happened on here, which was kind of rare for me to do. And then the nature of the color itself. So the coloring ended up being very sporadic, again, very kind of quickly movement. And again, the brush is quite big. So I'm always amazed. You put that big brush in the palette, and then you got these really fine, delicate lines that come out. And I've seen all kinds of stuff in it. Some people, think it's, it's the, the edge of the pond, and they can see the different birds and the fish. Other people see different things. I'm always fascinated. There's never one thing that is, correct. It's really just there to invoke a response, because it's how color and how vibration and really form is helping us to connect to spirit.
For me, this one has a real sense of dance about it. And why I liked it so much was because that dance comes in those warm tones and those lighter strokes. And then you have this not murky, that's the wrong word, as if the sky's clouded over and casting shadow on the lake. So I perceived a lake. And what I liked was it was showing that juxtaposition of how you can still feel joy when things are a little glum. So again, we're all going to interpret it differently, but that's what drew me to this one. It's that contrast of being alive, that we have the good and the challenge, and we can choose what we're putting our focus on. So I got all of that out of your painting.
Beautiful. And like I said, I'm always fascinated by the quality of the light and the movement. These are things that, as I was an artist, you're always trying to put that in, but very challenging. But with spirit art, very simple to do, because you're just the channel for this process.
Mm-hmm. So show us another one, please.
Okay, so let me just go back. So this one here is going to be, this one's titled Mystic Path. So let me just get this one up here. I think you can see that now. So Mystic Path is a really interesting one that came about. When I do the process, they're all the same. I never know exactly if I'm going to do a landscape or something. And this one was very interesting, and with the colors. And this one actually has a lot of like a gold colored painting in it, paint as well. And the coloring is very interesting in this one, and also the layering. And there's everything in here. There's every color in here. And when I started to kind of connect with this one, for me, it was more about the soul journey. So this was what I was picking up. It's the evolution of the souls, and kind of like this whole swirling mass that is happening. And of course, you see there's a lower portion and an upper portion. And the upper portion was really moving into maybe more the enlightened path as the souls ascend up. And then everything is kind of really interspersed into this whole field, this whole universal field. So there's, everything kind of is moving in and out of this field. So there's a lot of depth in here. But, this is just my interpretation. This is just my, what I was picking up. But I'm really curious about what our audience is experiencing. What emotion does it evoke in you? Does it sense something? Because I don't really want to say, oh, this is what it is, because that's really, this is just my interpretation.
Oh, yes.
Your interpretation could be totally different,
Yeah, so like people listening, comment in below and let us know what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're thinking. It's good to hear. Absolutely.
Yeah, the paintings are really amazing. And this one really has a whole different path, because this was actually purchased by somebody, and unfortunately they transitioned. And I didn't know until a friend said they wanted to give this painting back.
Oh, wow.
So I actually got the painting back. And of course, this is where things get very interesting as an artist. There's a whole spiritual message behind this, because they honored the painting so much that it couldn't just go to anybody. It had to come back. They, like I said, they became the sentinel for it. And then, of course, when their time was done, the new sentinel will be chosen. So This one is still currently sitting in my gallery, so there's still hope for somebody to receive this. But I always find it's you know, there's a whole backstory that just fascinating, you know, and why things. It's just one of those things that that happens. So.
It would be lovely to see it in person and to see that shimmering gold that you speak of. You know, the camera, the TV viewer monitor doesn't do it justice for sure.
Yeah, well, that's the artist's way, right? We always want to be in person. You know, it's like the one behind me is like 8 feet wide. So there's a lot of scale and depth in it.
And this one's a big
and this one is fair size as well, but it's a smaller piece. So.
Okay.
Okay, and what else were we? Just trying to remember here what other pieces. Oh yes, 1,000 words. So let me show you this one here as well. So just getting into that. There we go. So I think you can see this piece now. So this one's called 1,000 words. So there's been an evolution, although you've only seen a few paintings here. So this is a more recent painting, and there's a whole evolution that has happened from some of my earlier beginnings to where they are now. And of course, as my vibration shifts and changes, I find that the connections are different. So it's really the spirit connection, how they work with me is different. So as you become a lighter, or you know, kind of a more pure channel is the only way I would describe it. And a pure channel is just a sense that we hold more light and we have less resistance. So let's use it in that context. So as I have less resistance, more of that purity of that spirit can come through, and then they can really create on a different level. And you can see a different quality of light in here. Now this is something I'm always because when I look in here, it's almost like a more, there's a watercolor effect. There's a more of a traditional effect with maybe acrylic. So if you're the artist out there, you know, just see how you think that works. But again, these are the same paints, the same, you know, it's all on canvas as well. And the layering is very interesting. So they work in different layering as well. And there's always a finishing touch, how it goes through. And I never know how a painting will finish. And how it will, and what really the end message is. And that's what Janis and I do at the end. We kind of sit down, we look at the paintings, we get the messages, we start to connect. But then, you know, really it's up to putting it out for people to see how they connect to the painting. And really, I'm more curious on how, what message they receive, you know, what paintings they're interested in, because everyone's interested in something different. So there's always something here for everyone. So if this isn't really your thing, you know, it's always say, just go to the website, check out a few other pieces, and people are fascinated by other pieces. So just the way it is. So
this one's such a contrast. You had said in the earlier one, oh, forgive me, what the names? I'm trying to remember their names. The one with the cross.
Serene Silence was our first one that we showed.
The Mystic Path is what I'm referring to. In the Mystic Path, you said all the colors were in it, and yet some people may look at that and see some colors dominant over others, whereas in this one gives you a sense that all the colors are in it, right? For the first look, you know, when you look at it at first, just like the other one, it gave you this sense first look that there were dominant colors, whereas this one, you get that sense that all the colors are there, and yet both of them have all the colors. So again, I love how, you know, the variability is there based on how spirit's working with light and color and form. It's beautiful.
Great, thank you.
So where do you see yourself going now from here? I mean, you said this is one of your more recent paintings. Obviously, spirit is directing some of this, but you have a say in the matter. So where do you see yourself going from here? Well,
you know, there's always something new to discover and to grow into. You know, the whole spiritual path, as we call it, is, you know, it's an eternal journey on some level. We're always evolving and changing. So there's so much more to explore. For me, you know, color's always been the strong suit of how I work with this. So color is always really dominant in there. shapes do evolve. So sometimes there's more abstract, which I find is, kind of a bit of trending. So a lot of abstract artwork is very trendy right now. Although when you're looking at, let's say, something, a painting behind me, this one's called Realms of Light. So this was done several years ago. In itself is an abstract as well. So there's different ways, and I find that when I'm doing different connections, there's a process. So I'm trying to evolve through different processes, and I'm not sure exactly. I can't say for certain, this is where I'm going, because who knows where that road goes. But I'm just more open, and I find, as I change and evolve, the artwork changes and evolves, and the message in the artwork changes and evolves, and then the people that will come to admire the artwork also changes, because who I can connect to in the past is going to be different in the future. So I don't know who's going to show up at the next gallery and all of that. So I'm just open to the whole process. I'm really here to really be a vehicle to have people experience spirit art. Most people don't understand it at that level. Most people just think of art as art. But when I do sit down and I talk to people about it, it gives them another layer of what they're looking at. And I think that they enjoy that process. They start to have a deeper understanding. And really, it's also their evolution, because they don't really understand why they're attracted to a piece. And maybe this is their introduction of moving into this whole spirit realm of different possibilities, because who knows, they could be the next greatest medium. Their channels could open up. Who knows where they're going through? But we all had to get introduced at some level. And when we were inspired by that connection, then it opened up and it blossomed in many ways. So I'm really just here to facilitate that. And if that's what inspires you, if I'm the artist that, you see a painting and it's like, wow, this is my journey and I want to learn more, then that's wonderful, because it really sits great in my heart that I can be the facilitator, open the door for you. Because this isn't about me. This is really your journey, where you're going, really your pathway. And if I can inspire you on that pathway, then I'm doing my journey. Because when we started, I wrote a book. I got to get it on Amazon at some point. But we with Realms of Light, we did a book called, it was called Realms of Light. It was Enlightened Art to Inspire Your Journey. And that whole book is a collection of really, we did the art, we did the poems, we talked a little bit about the inspiration behind it. Although I was trying to do it in print at the time, but things evolve. I got to get it on Amazon, so I'll probably do an update and then get it out there. But really, it's about your journey, because at the end of the day, I find the mediums that I'm inspired with, the spirit, is really the ones that lead us to the next step. And it's that next step that's going to evolve you on your journey. And if I can do that, I think that's a great way to move you on the path, because the path could open up in many different ways for you, whether it's art, whether it's physical mediumship, whether it's more mental, whether it's just a connection, or just really to have a connection with spirit. So many people say, what's my purpose?
Oh, you froze.
Or even if you just need healing, right? We all need to move through different things in our past. We're not sure why they're there, what we're learning through that process. And really, this is just the journey through that.
So if you have inspired listeners, not if, the inspired listeners that are here today, viewers and listeners, what do you recommend to them now that you've inspired them? They want to get started working with spirit and perhaps even spirit art. What would you advise them? How would you get them going or encourage them?
Well, I mean, I realize this is probably more of a Lilydale crowd, so you've actually got a big in. You've been inspired at some point to at least explore the whole realm. And when we were in Stansted, for me it was learning the whole gamut, because for me it was all new. I didn't understand all of that, and it was like, wow, look at what all these people are doing. And then I didn't realize that Stansted, where it was, the whole house was built for the art.
Arthur Findlay, yes,
for the art collection. So So that was a really great thing. It's like, wow, somebody actually built a house for art. And then you start to look at the art. And then as you go through that journey, I think for everyone, it's just, for me, it's really about just follow your passion, follow your curiosity, allow the doors to open. So if you go to a lecture, you get a reading, you buy a piece of art, or you just want to explore more items on YouTube, however it is, it's going to move you on your path, your journey. And I think that's layering your life. We always talk about, our character and how it brings more depth to who you are. And when you have that whole spirit depth, then it's like you're connecting to another aspect of you that maybe you don't even know exists. And I think that was really a welcoming invitation, because we don't know where you're going to go and what you're going to do and really what your pathway is. Maybe you're here to inspire a whole generation on this path. But we start somewhere, and we're all here to facilitate you on that. So if you're inspired by anything you see here, or if you need a reading, healing, whatever it is, find that medium that's going to be the outlet to guide you on the next step of your journey. That's really what I would say.
And media, right? Like, how do you want to express this? Do you want to do it visually? Do you want to do it vocally? And experiment. The one thing you've certainly given inspiration forward about is to spiritualize yourself in your own self through your life, and then your passions will carry that with it. I mean, that's what I'm getting from how you got to where you are and how you are now inspired and inspiring others. So let us know, you do sell your art, correct?
Yes, I do.
Do you take commissions? So if someone said, I'd like you to do a commission for me, do you do that?
I haven't done too many commissions, but yes, definitely if somebody wants, those are always possibilities.
Okay.
I've done some specific paintings, kind of for people, and then they really enjoyed them after, yes.
Okay. And then if you and Janis, would you work together for someone to bring through a loved one? Is that something you guys would offer?
Yeah, we still support the spiritual community. There's several, spiritualist churches around that we do dems for. We support them. So maybe you might see us at one of those demonstrations. We're a bit rare, first of all, we're a couple, and that we do the spirit art. So it's always a treat when we do it. But yeah, we're here to support that community grow, because that's where our roots were. We came from that. We've been involved in that community for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then the only other thing I would add to that is, really following my own spiritual growth through the Dao Academy and everything I've learned on the healing path, is I'm actually able now to offer people special blessing services that can really evolve their journey. Whether you want to open up channels, whether you want to really put a foundation in the body, or whether you have a challenge that you're trying to do. So these are all things that this is part of my journey, and this is something that we can offer people as well. So I think we can accommodate you on, where you're at, and help you to evolve where you need to go.
And to follow your heart. Like
follow your heart wellness.
Follow your heart wellness. Yes, follow your heart. I love that. So the way we get a hold of you then is www.followyourheartwellness.com, correct?
Yeah, you can just type in Follow Your Heart Wellness as different words and you'll see it come up. Or if you know followyourheartwellness.com, go to the website. There's lots there. So, we do a free session every week so people can come in. We talk about different things. We help people understand kind of a transformation process so that they can get what they need. And then we if they're inspired, want to join a special retreat or other things that we offer, that's there as well. I have links to the art galleries so you can go and visit more of the art, get inspired just to look at what we do in the past. And there's usually other things that come up. So we're always putting new things on the website. So yeah, just enjoy an experience. And we call it Follow Your Heart Wellness because we wanted people to really connect with their heart, right? Because you will always be on the path if you're connecting with your heart. If you're connecting on the mind level, more mental, then maybe we don't go always in the true path. But if you're really, I always say it's that intuition, Your intuition is there. Everybody has it. Just follow your heart. It's there to guide you and to lead you. You never know. I mean, look where it's led. We're really grateful to be introduced to you, Kathleen, and I really hope that this can go out to serve your community and those around. So I'm just so grateful for this opportunity.
So glad you were able to make it. And thank you so much for sharing this art, this vision, and this passion that you have, because we know it's going to inspire others. So listeners and viewers, you can check the links down below. That will be covering the items that we discussed. And if you want to get a hold of Mark, please do so. Mark, I hope we get to see you and Janis in Lilydale someday. If this year, not this year, then maybe next year sometime. It would be great to have you down here.
It'd be great to see Lilydale, because we go to Toronto not that far. So,
oh yeah, it's only an hour. It's probably 2 hours.
Drive, yeah.
2.5 from Toronto. But yeah, bringing a good Canadian over. You know that I'm Canadian originally, right?
Yes. And now we have a Lilydale connection. So this is really
yes,
wonderful.
exactly.
We talked about it in the past, but no connection. So now we know you're there, and
there you go. You'll have somebody to talk to and somebody to talk about. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And listeners and viewers, I'm happy to have you here. We're grateful that you took the time to sit with us. And please join us again in a week or so. And we are going to have another medium that will share their wisdom and knowledge and process of working with the spirit world. Bless you all. Thank you so much. Be well. And thanks again, Mark. Mark Soparlo.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy.
Bye.